Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Zero fluff, zero preamble today. We are immediately deconstructing one of the most massive, frankly intimidating topics in the entire Cambridge IGCSE Additional Mathematics 0606 syllabus. Look, if you're gearing up for this exam, you already know the pressure is on. But today, we're going to crack the code on a very specific strategy that practically reverse engineers a top band score. We're talking about the binomial expansion strategy, and I'm going to show you exactly what examiners are desperately looking for when they grade your paper.
All right, Section 1, the high mark exam shock.
I want you to picture this for a second. You're sitting in the exam hall. The clock is ticking down, the pressure is totally mounting, and you flip the page to find this massive, multi-stage analysis question. This is not a drill. It's a very real, very high-stakes scenario that absolutely catches thousands of students completely off guard every single year. Now consider this staggering number, 15%. Did you know that finding the term independent of x, specifically in the expansion of 2x plus 1 over x to a given power, accounts for approximately 15% of your total marks in the Add Math 0606 exam? 15%! Just think about that. That single question type is a massive grade boundary risk. It's literally the difference between securing your top grade or dropping an entire band down. The stakes really could not be higher here.
And this is exactly where things tend to go completely wrong. Take a look at a flawed, failing answer. It's basically a mess of scattered numbers just racing toward a conclusion with zero clear logic. It's barely scraping a 2 out of 10. But then, contrast that with a top band 9 out of 10 answer. You see, it isn't just about getting the right number at the bottom of the page. It exhibits connected, conceptual understanding. It actually shows the causal relationships. It's logical. It's structured. The difference between these two answers isn't really about baseline math skills. It is 100% about exam strategy.
Which brings us to Section 2, Mastering Method Marks.
You know that feeling when you walk out of an exam feeling totally great, only to get your paper back later with a shockingly low score? Yeah, well, this is exactly why. We really need to agitate this problem for a second because ordinary, run-of-the-mill revision completely fails students in these specific high-stakes scenarios. Students obsess over getting the final answer right, but here's the secret. Examiners grade the process. The 0606 syllabus fundamentally prioritizes analytical depth over superficial breadth. The examiners are not just acting as human calculators checking your final number. They want to see your theoretical architecture. They are looking at how you integrate this problem with other areas of the syllabus. If you just jump straight to the final answer, you are leaving massive amounts of marks sitting right there on the table.
And that leads us straight to the method mark strategy. Basically, this means marks are awarded for the step-by-step process, the logical structured reasoning, and the analytical depth. And get this, that applies regardless of whether your final answer is perfectly right or slightly off because of some tiny calculation error. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to show you a massive examiner clue that changes the final answer completely. But actually, scratch that. First, you need the framework that makes that clue absolutely obvious, because if you don't have the framework down, that clue's going to slip right past you.
So let's get into Section 3, the 5-step success framework.
This right here is the definitive, tactical framework that practically reverse engineers that 9 out of 10 score we looked at earlier. It takes a chaotic, multi-stage problem and turns it into a predictable, totally mechanical routine. Let's walk through these 5 procedural steps to systematically deconstruct and solve this complex binomial problem. First up, Step 1, read. You have to clearly identify the given information. Step 2, select method. You break the problem down into logical steps based on core math principles. Step 3, show steps. You solve it systematically, right there on the page. Step 4, check accuracy. Pause and check for reasonableness. Just ask yourself, does this actually make sense? And finally, Step 5, the final answer. You make your justified recommendations or state your conclusion. This is your ultimate deconstruct, solve, evaluate pipeline.
Let's break down the technical methodology of that framework just a bit further, because presentation of information follows very strict conventions. You absolutely must deconstruct the question. You have to extract relevant data, meaning you're pulling out exactly what you need from the text or expressions. Then select your analytical framework. But pay attention, because here is exactly where students hemorrhage those method marks. You must execute with clear notation and present with correct terminology. The assessment objectives are specifically targeting not just your knowledge, but your application and analysis. Use proper headings, use appropriate formats, annotate clearly. You have to show the examiner exactly how your brain is working on the page.
Moving on to Section 4, Top 3 Examiner Warnings. So, we dug directly into the Cambridge Principal Examiner reports to uncover the catastrophic errors students actively make when they are under pressure. These are direct, real-world insights into why marks get lost. Think of this as a spot the error challenge timeline for a student taking an actual exam. At minute 2 of answering the question, panic sets in and the first major mistake happens, confusing cause and effect. They mix up the sequence of the binomial expansion right out of the gate. By minute 4, they're rushing, completely forgetting format and presentation. The notation gets totally messy, and the examiner can no longer follow their logical structure. And finally, by minute 6, they're just throwing down random math, providing generic answers that are not at all specific to the context given in the prompt. This exact 3-stage timeline is how a 15% question turns into a total 0.
I actually want to read this authoritative warning to you directly from the Principal Examiner report, because it is just that important. Quote, "The classic mistake is providing generic answers not specific to the question context. Always link every point to the given scenario." End quote. Cross-topic connections and specific contextualized reasoning are the exact keys that actually unlock the highest mark bands. The examiner needs to know that you aren't just blindly reciting some memorized formula, but that you are actively solving this specific problem.
So how do we prevent the panic from setting in at minute 2? Well, here's a super quick, actionable win for you. A memory hack. Simply create your own custom mnemonic using the first letters of the key terms and analytical steps required for the expansion of 2x plus 1 over x to a given power. By locking in a custom mnemonic, you completely bypass that minute 2 panic. You essentially build a mental checklist that forces you to remember the format, the presentation, and the specific sequence required to lock down all those method marks.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, the command word cliffhanger.
Okay, so we've established the framework. You know you need to show your steps, you know to use clear notation, and you know to avoid those generic answers. But there is one ultimate missing piece to this whole puzzle, and it brings us to the most critical, provocative question of this entire explainer. But how do you actually know which method to select in the first place? We talked about Step 2, select method. But if you misinterpret the exam prompt, your beautiful 5-step framework, your perfect notation, and your amazing custom mnemonic are totally useless. You are literally just going to flawlessly execute the completely wrong mathematical procedure.
So, the final secret is this. Command words decide your mark band. Everything, and I mean literally everything, depends on understanding specific command words. Higher-order assessment objectives demand evaluation of alternatives, and the framework comprises descriptive, analytical, and evaluative levels. Whether you are specifically asked to evaluate, compare, show that, or solve dictates the entire path you have to take. Your top-tier 9 out of 10 answer depends entirely on decoding them accurately. Because of this, understanding command words isn't just a nice option, it's absolutely mandatory. Our next explainer diving deep into these command words is a non-negotiable watch if you want to secure those final marks.
So, to make sure you absolutely don't miss that vital next step, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. Go practice these past paper questions using the framework we discussed today. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. If 15% of your entire grade rests on one specific expansion methodology, and you now know for a fact that the examiners grade the process way over the final answer, are you still going to revise the ordinary way, or are you finally ready to start thinking like an examiner? See you in the next explainer.